So my last story in this playlist was a little bit bleak and disgusting. So I'm going to try to make it a little bit lighter in this one. And um, this is going to be about my hometown. Um, and I'm going to do a couple different anecdotes, but they're all going to tie into the idea of the drive-in theater. Um, I'm from Detroit, Motown, and the Motor City is known for its cars. So I, throughout my life, I've had the pleasure of having these sort of experiences at the drive-in. And I know there are still some drive-ins out there, but I do think it's sort of a lost art, I guess. And the experience is very unique. Um, so I'm going to start with one of my earliest memories of going to a drive-in, and that would be there was a drive-in movie on I think it was either 10 Mile or 12 Mile and Gratiot Road, which is in Roseville. I think it's 12 Mile of Detroit. It is no longer there. It was torn down a long time ago. But I remember it primarily because the screen was on the reverse of this gigantic cement block, kind of, that said Gratiot in like neon lights. So this is like in the late 70s, I guess, or possibly the early 80s. I went to it several times, but I remember the shape was very distinct and almost like a monolith or something that went into the sky, and it was very high. So like when you were driving in a car down that road, which was a very wide road with many lanes, you could see it from quite far away, especially at night because it was lit up. So I remember a few movies that I saw there, and they they really it's just a very unique experience because I mean at that time they had the little speaker that you would put in the window, and there's like a concession stand and a playground, and as a kid that's great for there to be a playground. And everyone knows like the dancing hot dog trailer for the concession stand, and there's just a very um, Americana thing about the drive-in theater. So I recall seeing like Rocky 3 at the drive-in and E.T. And I don't know how this can be because this came out a lot earlier, but maybe they re-released it or something. But I have the distinct memory of seeing Jaws at the theater, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because I would have been too young to see it when it originally came out at the theater, I think. But I do remember that, so maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't know. Memory is weird that way. But I remember like all like being in the car, all of the emotions tied to the movies, either like at the end of ET where it's quite sad, or in Jaws where you're terrified. Everything seems a little bit more heightened than if you're in a movie theater, and I'm not sure why that is, but that's what I experienced. And it's a communal experience because you're in this place with a bunch of people, but you're also kind of isolated from them, and contained in your family, with your family. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think when I was a child, there was something kind of magical about it. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to when I was a teenager, and it takes on a slightly different purpose, I guess. So I can't remember if this was in my car or my cousin's car, but we both had these muscle cars. They were both like used cars that we got. We were teenagers, like 16, maybe 17. And, it was pretty common at that time to have a car like that, a sort of beat up used car that was quite old. So I had like a green Cutlass Supreme, and he had a yellow, I think it was a Chevelle. And both of them were in the early 70s, I guess, like 70 or 72 maybe. But anyway, we were in one of those cars, and I can't really remember which one. But I think it might have been his, because him and his girlfriend were in the front seat, and myself and a girl that I worked with were in the back seat. At this time I worked at a movie theater in the suburbs of the Detroit area. And so, like, at this movie theater, there were a lot of teenagers, and there were a lot of males and females. So there was often a lot of, kissing going on, or, teenage kind of sexuality type stuff. So we went to this movie, and I don't remember. Usually in like in a drive-in, they're double, two movies, and sometimes they'll repeat the movies, right? So you can be there for like a long time. And so I remember one of the movies, but I can't remember what the other one was. But one was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. So we're on this like double date with this ridiculous movie. And we watched it and stuff, but by the second movie, I don't know about the front seat, but the back seat wasn't really watching the movie anymore. So, we were kissing and stuff, and I'm not going to go into detail, but as a teenager, it was one of my sort of first experiences. It wasn't the first one, but it was definitely crossing some lines that I hadn't done before that. So, it was, I look back on it fondly because, it was one of those very teenager moments where you're sort of moving into your adult life, I guess, in some ways. So, the irony is now whenever I see little clips of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or, if I by some chance watch it, I'm always thinking of that experience, which is odd because the movie doesn't really connect with that. But, yeah, so I'm going to, for the third anecdote, I'm going to fast forward to a few years ago, actually. There is still one drive-in in the Detroit area called the Ford Wyoming. It's on Ford and Wyoming streets, and it's gigantic. I can't remember how many screens. I think there might be like 4 or 5 for each complex, and there's sort of 2 complexes. So it's quite large, and it's a little bit convoluted the way you have to drive through it to get to where you're going to be. But I remember being there and seeing a film called Wrong Turn. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's a horror movie. A little bit like Deliverance, but a little leans more into the horror. Like Deliverance is more of a drama, but this is more into the horror. Maybe it's a little bit like The Hills Have Eyes or one of those kind of films. So, I was there and with some people, and we had some beers and like a cooler, and it's now because it's so uncommon, it's quite cheap to go, and we all went, and it wasn't that much, and not all of us were drinking, but a few of us were, and it was quite fun being you know, and because at the time I had lived in Korea for a long time, and I went back to the U.S. for a little while, and I guess while I was in the theater, I had this sort of overwhelming feeling of nostalgia. And like when you're gone from your country for a long time and you experience something that's very quintessential, not just for your country but maybe from your past or your hometown, it can really be emotional, I guess. So you know, we're drinking and sort of talking and laughing, and the movie's just ridiculous. And it's kind of the perfect movie to go to with a bunch of people because you're kind of getting scared, but you're laughing, and you don't have to follow it that closely. So, you know, we're kind of talking and stuff in the car and getting, I think we brought a pizza with us and stuff. But, you know, it just made me realize how important those connections to your hometown or to some cultural thing that you used to experience. Um, and so, you know, I think it's important to do those things once in a while. I know with the last few years, with what's been going on, you know, a lot of people don't want to leave their house, or I don't know. I get this feeling of apathy a lot. People don't want to do anything anymore, even though people can now. I don't know what, you know, the year 2020, 2021 did to us, but it changed a lot of people, and I think people can't put their heads back into what it was like before. And I think we need to do that. We need to go back to those kind of things because that's part of living. And if we don't have that, what are we doing exactly? So my advice is if there is something that you connect with like that, go do it, you know. I'm in Korea again, so I actually can't do it. I don't think there are drive-in theaters here. There might be, but I don't have a car here, and it's kind of hard to get access to a car unless you rent one. So I haven't been to one here. But to be honest, the way things are here, like I've been to different, like the movies or like screen golf or something like that, where it's just very different here. So I assume that if I went to a drive-in here in Korea, it would be very different, and I would not have the same nostalgic feeling probably. Uh, I know in America, a lot of these things are run down a bit, so they have a kind of a vibe to them, almost a sort of Scooby-Doo like haunted vibe. But here it would probably be immaculately clean and very high tech, I think, which would still be fun, but not. It's not quite the same thing, you know. You kind of want the grit and that kind of thing, I think. So anyway, I advise you to do that if you get a chance, and that's about it for this video. If you like my stories, you can like and subscribe, hit the bell and all that stuff. And I think I might tell another Detroit story next. So if you want to come back for that, that'd be great. Take care. Have a good day. Bye.